It's a lot of space for mischief, so you have to be on your feet. You got to think. You know what I mean? You got to be ahead. When the students are here, it's always busy. Even when you think you got downtime, it's not. My name is Jermaine Muhammad. I'm a security supervisor here at the school, Thornton Township High School. Each one of these children, they have a purpose, a personality, and they have a necessary component that we need to fix a problem somewhere. So my job to them is to be what they don't have. This is the door we come in, they get off the bus for the lunch period, they walk down, hot spot in the morning. Oh no, no one makes enough money. I do not feel like I make enough money.
Many Black Americans are doing the best they can, but the system is stacked against them. Today, Blacks have 60% of the income of whites and 5% of the wealth. In other words, almost no financial cushion against a rainy day to start a business, send a kid to school, or move. And much of that economic disparity exists because of decades of systematic racism that denied Blacks the ability to build generational wealth. While the New Deal helped lift Americans out of Great Depression poverty into the middle class, African Americans were repeatedly denied access. Social Security took a compromise to pass, and farm and domestic workers, largely Black professions, were excluded from the deal. The GI Bill gave servicemen affordable education and home loans. Suburban homes for whites created wealth, collateral for business, and education loans and nest eggs, an engine powering families into the middle and upper class. But Black GIs were refused acceptance at White College and categorically shut out of the home loans. Freeways were purposely designed to be walls and city transport limited, keeping Blacks and whites further apart. And when Blacks could get mortgages, they faced redlining. Banks refusing to underwrite homes outside segregated neighborhoods, forcing Blacks to stay pinned in segregated cities and low-value housing. Some communities continue to feel these effects, like parts of the South Shore neighborhood in Chicago. That's where Jermaine and his wife Tiara live with their 5 children, which has a median income nearly half that of the Chicago average and the second highest rate of violent crimes in Chicago.
There is a little bit of worry and fear. I like this neighborhood, but sometimes there is kind of violence around here, so pretty much after 5, I won't go out the house. Gunshots usually happen around that time anyway, so I try to come out within the afternoon. No, I do not wear headphones. Because I like to be aware of my surroundings, I try to have no distractions. So if I do have music in my ear, I probably won't be able to tell if there's a gunshot or something outside. So it's basically just a awareness type of issue. I want to describe it as a bad feeling or a good feeling. It's kind of like a necessary feeling that you need to survive out here. But I feel like it hasn't hindered me to the point where I can't go to college or something like that.
Black communities are not violent. They're victims of violence. What you have is hurt people hurting people. The issue again is equitable access and opportunity. What opportunity do I have to earn income equitably? And African Americans are finding that systematically that's not happening. As you drive the South Shore, if you go down certain streets, you'll see blocks and blocks of emptiness. Where's the investment?
I'm home. Assalamu alaikum.
There's no such thing in my world of, let's let the children go outside and play, which would be very easy for me and very helpful. I have to go out there with them. I have to watch and make sure that they're okay. Somebody might, come by with a gun and shooting, looking for somebody else, and you just kind of get crossed in the crossfire. I never say to myself, let's move out of Chicago. I'm tired of this, because I don't run into certain problems. Kind of maybe a little uncertain of the unknown, moving somewhere else.
My father had a nice car and stuff, but dude, the lights are turned off. I'm saying you get the brand new leather jacket, but we need bread. Ever since then, I made a point, and I emphasize to the children, substance over symbol. You can have a BMW, right? But ain't no gas and it ain't going nowhere. I jump in this hoopty and it's rolling. What's more important? Rolling is more important. After seeing the hurt and pain of my mother, and other women too that I was close to, it's can't be that person. Batir, dinner time. What y'all playing Fortnite, man?
And I was just talking to Terrell.
Oh, we playing Fortnite. My wife and I, we know it's our duty, it's our job, our obligation to be better people every day because they're still becoming people. So the people that they encounter with the most is us. Somewhere along the line, let's take a responsibility.
Why not give them the best of ourselves when we can while they're young?
Hear prayer, happy prayer. In the name of Allah, beneficent merciful, thank you for this food. Amen. The way I feel about my income is that whenever I need more, I get more. I can sleep at night, and we can eat, and I can still be a resource for my children. Yes, it's hard, and yes, it's tiring. Yes, it takes a lot of thought.
That is true.
It takes a lot of energy and thought. You can't be a part-time parent.
Almost getting ready for Factory to go to college. I guess we could start packing.
So when the social worker asked me, was I going to college? I told him, absolutely not. I'm homeless. And I said that Black and brown people don't go to college. And he told me, sure they do. And if you continue doing what you're doing as a homeless individual, you someday will go to college. And I sure did.
Antoine Lavelle, now a professor at Fordham University in New York, is describing what psychologists refer to as learned helplessness, when an individual experiences repeated trauma or failure as a result of things they don't control, that they no longer feel something is possible. When the Black community systematically experiences higher levels of poverty, limited access to quality housing and education, and years of racial discrimination, it's not surprising when some experience a loss of hope.
My mother was in and out of the workforce, primarily on public assistance. And I remember she received about $64 every 2 weeks. I mean, I don't know how, but we made it. We lived with a bunch of family members, and then eventually the last family member said, you can't stay here anymore. We stayed with a friend before we had to go and sleep on the number 3 train. So I was never scared. My mother and I would get on the train, we would sleep in the corner in the evening and kind of wake up in the morning, the beginning of rush hour. I would go to school during the day. I was a student at Brooklyn College Academy. We had really great teachers who eventually found out that I was homeless and made sure that I was okay. So I would eat at school, right? I would have tutoring, but I would then meet my mother at the train station at a certain time in the evening. I would find newspapers, and the current events section was always the section that I enjoyed reading. And that's the first time that I saw that there was a place in the Bronx where homeless families could go. I asked her, could we go to this location so that we could find housing? And she said, absolutely not, because that's where homeless people are. It makes sense. There's a stigma around homeless shelters in New York that they're dangerous. So eventually, she looked at me and said, are you ready? I remember opening the door of the apartment that we were given and running in with excitement. And I remember the staff member that was with us. He looked in amazement, because why would a child be so excited to run into a shelter apartment? It was something that was my own. I hadn't had a place that I can call my own and close the door. And this was the first time that my mother and I would be able to close the door to a safe space. My mother's in her 70s. That mother's guilt will always be present for her, but I told her, I appreciate everything else that she gave me. She didn't have the money to give me, she didn't have the economic security, but she gave me a lot more than that. Right? She gave me love, she gave me values, something that I use every day to be successful.
Some people call this area the Black Beverly Hills. I'm pretty sure it was someone African American that labeled it. These are wonderful homes. They have great views. Everyone here, they work very hard to be here. This is a lively neighborhood. Still play their music loud, we barbecue, and we have huge gatherings. And when people of other colors move here, you need to know that. This is the community. Okay, so the potatoes are done? Come on, Madison, time for dinner.
Initially, I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, right in the middle of LA, and we always knew that there were more affluent Black people that lived in the Baldwin Hills area. So as kids, we always wanted to be there.
What's the secret ingredient? The secret ingredient to these ribeye steaks is a barbecue sauce called Sammy sauce.
I'm always looking to be better, to make next steps, to be the best I can be. And I don't think you should ever apologize for your level of accomplishment. That should be one of the most important things that you should celebrate. With Madison, I'm very clear to her that my background and her background, meaning starting points, is different. And I want for her to understand that she has a leg up and that her responsibilities, having that leg up, is to be a little more successful than some would say that I am.
Les faiblissements du système de santé.
The major question always is, what's the name of the game? It's options. When we chose to live here, it's because there is a lawyer, there is a doctor, there is a pharmacist. They're all here, and she can begin to understand these people and then begin to select the option. And those are just awesome possibilities.
I'm very proud of my dad and my mom. When I go back with him and I see the area he grew up in, it just looks like a neighborhood to me.
There was an incident last year at Madison's school. A rabbi came to speak to the children, and she was talking about Watts and Compton and said nothing good comes out of Watts and Compton. Madison's like, well, wait a minute, that's where my dad grew up.
The houses are smaller than the houses we have here, but it's just a neighborhood, and people shouldn't look at it as anything other than that.
It's kind of like you never left. This was my house. I lived here from age 4 until my mother passed. Maybe 10, 12 people in a 1,200 square foot house all at once, and everybody just wanted better.
How's it going, Jack? How you been doing, man?
I'm doing good.
Well, I knew he was going to be good. I did. I knew that. And he was a hard worker. He was a very hard worker. He got it from his mother, though. Got it from his mother. She was a hard worker.
Growing up in our neighborhood, it was always about being with the group. So the group was your protection, the group was your savior, the group was your ability to move through the community without being bothered. I have an antenna that is always up looking for what is truth in my environment. With Madison, hers, because of her head start, if you will, she didn't have the antenna. We always talk about EQ, walking into a room, looking around, knowing what's going on. I just wanted to be safe. And so being safe is knowing that there are different measures of communication and it's not all verbal.
She knows that sometimes racism is hidden. It's not always right in your face. And she has pointed that out to me sometimes.
When I describe where I grew up or where I live to new friends or someone who's gonna come over my house, I always have to tell them, oh, I live in Baldwin Hills. They're like, where is that? And I'm like, if you know the Culver City Steps, which are pretty famous, it's the hill right next to that. So I always have to describe it in that way because no one really knows what it is. And if I say South LA, they immediately get this like, oh, you there?
In terms of current times, if you look at what was going on when we were kids, 17, 18, 19, being stopped by the police just in general, I don't see it much different then to now. When I'm going to work and I see the cop car, I still wonder what their intention is. So there's a lot of work to do. There should be better. One of my colleagues, who's a dentist in my building, after the George Floyd thing and all the things that he saw on television, he comes to me one day mid-work. He says, man, I just have been watching this stuff. And it's so horrible. I wonder if there's something specific you would think that you could tell me that I could do to be better, because I know that I haven't been my best person now that my eyes are open. But the most important thing that I got out of that was, if everybody has the opportunity to look earnestly at what's been happening over a great number of years, we can make some progress. It's just a matter of, do you want to take the time, and are you going to open up your heart to actually look at it and find out what truth is and what truth has been forever?